Hello and welcome. This is Kristen, and I'm coming in now with part 3 of the series that I've started, talking about my journey as an entrepreneur and having been through some very narcissistic background that was really, most people would look at it as some form of psychological abuse. I do believe if we were to look at it in a very clinical sense, that would be the case. I know many people have tuned into this channel looking for how to improve their eBay store, or maybe starting one, because this was started with me creating a new eBay store in June of 2024, and I'm on the path of growing it to a 6-figure income. But I said, and the first one is, I'm a very introspective person. I'm not there because I just want to raise a couple extra bucks. I've always done, at least more recent, I've done things in a more entrepreneurial sense, which is trying to take a path with a business plan, get myself to a very defined area, which is the 6-figure income. And I feel like that in doing that, you have to be very introspective. And I know in the more recent years, I've had to learn a lot more about myself and my upbringing, with this very narcissistic side coming out. And if you're not sure what narcissistic means, I kind of explore what my definition of it is. I've explained before, I'm in no way in the psychiatry field or any kind of nothing. This is just me in my way of defining it to how I'm handling it, which is what happens in part 2, as to what it's kind of my way of coping with it. And now in part 3, I want to explore to you and share with you some of the ways that I feel that, even though most people would look at this as a very negative thing, I think it has really prepared me and benefited me in my entrepreneurial path of where I'm at now. So some of the things I'm going to say, like I said before, that I don't like conflict. I'm having to go out there and learn how to be in the networking part of it, because as some of the examples I mentioned was, like, I worked in the state of New Jersey in a specialized unit that handled warrants, and that meant that you never know when it's going to happen. You never know when there's going to be somebody getting arrested. You never know which arrest is going to become some kind of problem, and you never know, because you're dealing with people who haven't followed the laws. So they're going to come up with every scenario, every excuse, and this is like a nightmare for a person like myself. And you have to learn how to cope with it. And I think I had such a willing drive to become a success, and this was like my first real career job, that I really did flourish. And through this relationship with a judge that I had there, I was in a specialized unit, but I was there in an administrative position, meaning I did not have the judicial side of it, which is all the judges. I was not there. He had no authority over me. I had regular administrative supervisors and stuff like that, but my job made me have to present court records of our departments on the record to the judges during court hearings. And this was a former Marine. And I'm going to tell you that, well, let me back up. The first judge that I had was blind. And that meant that when I went in there, I had to have everything prepared, because the only way that he could do anything was me bringing in everything for the record. He wasn't able to do anything. Most of the times the judges are putting the caption on the record, or the court recorder would be putting that on there, but he was blind. His court recorder at the time just left it up to everybody else. They just weren't going to do any of this. And I didn't know what I was supposed to do. This was just what I had to do. And so, like I said, I had to have all the court documents prepared, all the captions, everything. So that was when I got from there. Then there was multiple judges that I would have here and there, but I then got to the former Marine. And that man was almost like, these people that had like a big bark but no bite. And he really took to me, and I will go through why, I think, in a minute. But there was a lot of people that were like, kind of like, they weren't going to call him up. That was no. So if the sheriffs were having issues, or the jail had an issue, and it was something that came out of like one of my warrants, they were calling me. And the problem becomes that when you're one of these people that doesn't like conflict and you've always got to have the solutions ready, and that puts you in the middle. Because I'm not going to tell these people on my phone that, well, that's your problem. You go deal with it. Or you go call him and tell him about it, because they ain't going to do that. And he would give some outlandish stuff to me, like things that, I don't have a legal background, and you want me to do what? Like summons people to come in. Like, how am I supposed to do that? I didn't go to, I didn't go to law school. Like, shouldn't your law clerk do this? Like, but when you're in this kind of a upbringing, like, I'm not going to say to him, well, that's your law clerk's job. Oh, hell no, you're not going to do that. So I think I intrigued him at first, because I'm telling you, he would load up my plate and just keep loading. I mean, to the point where, like, if anything for the department would come up, his secretary would be like, he needs you to come up in the chambers, like, right now. And I'd be like, for what? I would get up there like, I'm like, what? Because I think I became like that assistant to him. It was like insane. And I think it was like him trying to just wait for me to push back and be like, I can't do any of this. But when you're in that personality, when you've got that kind of upbringing that has been subjected to narcissism so much, it's okay, dear. I'll deal with it. Don't worry about it. I don't, like I said, you're going to take everything on. And being a person that doesn't like waste, I don't like people wasting my time and resources and stuff, you start learning how to become more efficient. I learned the other players and how to keep things running smoothly. And then this judge got into a committee because the state of New Jersey started to standardize all of the procedures throughout the state. And that meant that they had to bring in this committee of various people, and he was one of 2 judges. And unbeknownst to me, because I don't need to know what his schedules are or what he's involved in, it's not my boss, it's not my husband, you know what I mean? I don't know, what do I need to know about this? He was using me as like this vessel of information for a long time. I didn't know it. I didn't need to know it, I guess, Here, like, he was basically like picking my brain or having me go out and do stuff or write him memos. And so I was like, what in the world? And I'm not saying it was in any way unprofessional, unmoral, unethical. No, I mean, he was just like I said, I think part of it was him waiting to see how much he could give to me before I finally just broke. Or, he had a lot of respect for me. I mean, he used to call me counsel and stuff. And I'm like, that ain't me. I was a probation officer, basic, that was my title. And I'm like, okay. He made me grow professionally in all of that aspect. And looking back, I'm so thankful for it, because when you're in business for yourself, I'm going to tell you, business means solving problems. That's it. That's it in a nutshell. Either the product you're selling is one that's answering a problem or question, or it's nostalgic for somebody, meaning like you bought that grandmother's vase that they've wanted forever, and that's bringing it to the market for them to do it. It's something that is always going to be there. There's always, if there's not a problem, then you don't have a business. So I thank God that I got pushed and pushed and pushed, that I wasn't just left to sit there like retired on the job and just left there. The department I worked in grew so much. We were so everybody wants to say that they're overworked, and especially people in government. But honestly, in the time that I was there, once they started doing standardizing everything, it also made them relook at allocation of duties and who was handling what. And our department wound up doubling in time that I was there. A lot of like federal regulations that got involved and things like that. And once they started standardizing, a lot of these computers were also starting to, behind the scenes, do different connections among themselves and things like that. And basically at the time that he was going through, like, to his retirement, they were going into the state of New Jersey and they were bringing in a whole new computer system. And I got headhunted and didn't know that. They brought me into these meetings of the bigwigs for the state and the the company that was the contractors for this new computer system. And I came into this like a deer in headlights. I had no idea what they were doing. I'm not talking about like the coding part of it, but they had us come in and it was a program, and it was like, okay, well, for instance, if you're going to send a notice out, if I need to send a notice for a hearing, what I need the computer to do. And it's like, I needed to send this document. I needed to send this document. It's got to pull the address from here. And it's like, okay, well then once the notice goes out, like what does the computer need to do then? Well, then I got to say like, did it come back? Did it not come back? Was it signed? Was it refused? So like I had to go through the scenarios of different things for this computer to be coded to go through the actual mechanics of what you needed it to do. And I thank God that I got thrown into, I wasn't just thrown into the deep end. It was basically like throwing me off a cruise ship into the ocean. Like these people have been working for months on getting this stuff together and everything. I got brought in, like I said, I was the specialized unit. I was like that one anomaly of things that they had like basically pushed off for a while. And by the time I got there, they had been like dealing with each other for so long. And then I walked in the room as like the only like, worker bee kind of personality to come in. And here I am. And I was just like, what? And I had many instances through my career through that, because a lot of the people in my administrative side of it didn't deal with, because we were so specialized and so few of us that they really didn't know that I would just get thrown in all kinds of meetings like this. And I thank God now, because if I didn't have that coping skill of not becoming the center of attention and not going into it with the I can't accomplish that mentality, that I was able to go in there, see what the coming of policy would be, coming to see what the future of this computer was going to be. My voice in that really was only to tell them exactly what my job kind of thing was every day. So there wasn't any real conflict for that. Their only real conflict was there was a couple things where they wanted to put certain documents in to, and the software company was telling them like the documents were like basically like too many characters. And I had to say to them, I'm like, well, that's the Supreme Court of New Jersey's directive. It has to read this way. And then that would give them the data, like, well, now they got to go back and figure whatever they figured out for that. Truthfully, I don't know if they just got the Supreme Court of New Jersey to redo their directive or whatever it was. I don't remember at this point in time. But it made me understand what the big picture of things were. And I kind of think I had a view of big picture, but with those experiences of being in these rooms with these much higher up the rung kind of staff members and things in the state, it really made me understand like where my role was, how the impacts were of mine to other people. And I'm going to tell you, it's really benefited me in having the business, because it makes me understand when I'm experiencing problems in my business that there's much larger people above me who are making policy decisions and things like that. And I've come to realize that like what kind of like they're people like anybody else. I don't have to just sit here and wallow in complaint. That I can actually, one of the other things that comes out of this is that when you've been in a narcissistic personality like I've been, you don't just go with a complaint. You want to go with a complaint, but a solution, because you learn very early on that just being a complainer is going to get you negatively viewed upon from the person, especially if the narcissistic personality is somebody who has any authority over you, a parent, maybe even a spouse or a boss. So you really have to come with a solution. And I've learned from being in those situations how much more impact I can take by being in the trenches, having a solution, understanding that I may have to reach out to some other people first to see, is it a systematic problem or just something with me personally? And if it's a systematic problem, then I start recognizing like who's the people that are the decision makers or people that can take it to the right people for me. And those are some things that I've been blessed in having to be subjected to this personality. So maybe a lot of people want to bring up the wallowing of, oh God, woe be me. But I'm going to tell you that it doesn't all have to be that way. And I'm going to come back with the last part to wrap all of this up and give you a little bit more of how I've been able to see the silver lining in this. I would appreciate any comments down below. I really don't want to go into much more detail as to like specifics of my stories, but please, if you do have questions, leave them down below. Is there some other ways that you're dealing with this from your own circumstances that maybe you need or want to share below? I would appreciate any comments you have. And I'm just trying to keep things very constructive and positive on this note. I'm sure there's a lot of people that would want to probably diminish or take away from either my stories or some other people's, but I'm going to just delete that kind of stuff because it just doesn't serve a purpose to tearing people down, truthfully. And I'm going to leave it on that note, and I'll say I'm going to catch you in the next episode.